We'll call the meeting back to order on a bright, snowy morning here in Bozeman. Thanks for having us again, and sure enjoyed dinner last night at the Stadium Club, I guess it's called, with the new lights and the fresh snow. We're enjoying our time here and hopefully having some productive meetings to boot. Call your attention to a picture that was in the Billings Gazette this morning. Bobcat Grizz fans, pictures taken in Iraq. It's pretty cool. Yeah, is that right? Well, now I lost Joe too. Is Blake here? Do it a little later. Okay. All right. Once again, remind everybody that we are streaming this meeting live through KUSM Montana Public Broadcast. So we appreciate all those that are tuning in via the internet as well. And we will just dive right into our agenda, starting with the Staff and Compensation Committee, which is first up. Major Robinson.
Thank you.
Robinson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We'll go ahead and get started with the Staff and Compensation Committee. We have, first of all, a few informational items for discussion. So we'll start with number one. A is the Commissioner Search update. Right now, where things stand is we have hired a firm, executive search firm, that's helping us with this effort. It's called Greenwood, Asher and Associates. We had a representative from their firm, Betty Asher, that's come to visit with us. She was down about a month ago or so and took time to meet with all of the regents. All of the regents are on the search committee, including former Regent Bornpaul. And so we were able to give her some comments about the position description, the type of person that we were looking for, and she then in turn took that and put together the position description for us to review, and also a job advertisement. So at this particular point, that's where the search is at, and obviously, and I think we certainly have mentioned it in other meetings as we've gone along, but I was very fortunate to attend some of the listening sessions that Commissioner Stern had been doing out and around Montana, and it was always a question that we asked the campuses and the campus leadership there, what their concerns were, what their thoughts, and what they'd like us to consider as well. And so we got a lot of great feedback that we took to that description as well. And I think it doesn't, it bears even more mentioning that with Commissioner Stern, that obviously we will miss her leadership, and that's something that was always expressed by the campuses as well. So it's going to be certainly a hard position to fill, but I think we'll have some good candidates out there. So is there any other comments from the committee members? Item B, the workers' compensation obligations. The MSU administers its own self-insured workers' compensation program, and it was authorized by the legislature about 10 years ago. And it's been successfully managed and from a financial standpoint, and today we have Program Director Leah Tietz that's going to speak to give us a little bit more information on some of the changes in the workers' compensation law. Thank you.
Before she begins, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to note some people in this community especially might recognize the name Leah Tietz. She is of a lineage, the daughter-in-law of the past president of Montana State University and another very proud Bobcat family.
Indeed. And I went neutral today without any Bobcat bling, and Lynette chastised me, so I ran down to the bookstore and am now sporting a little lamb and some bobcat earrings. So, well, thank you for that offer. It's very kind. So I will skip the introduction then, since that's been done for me. Thank you, Sheila. The 2011 legislature did make fairly sweeping changes to the workers' compensation statutes, and there's just one that I kind of want to bring to the board's attention today, and that is that there are new requirements that we will have to make some changes to meet our obligations for return to work, stay at work programs, which if you're not in the work comp lingo, that stay at work, return to work is a process or a procedure that you would have in place to bring injured employees back to work as soon as possible after an injury, even if they're not at 100% or cannot do 100% of their regular duties. And this board was actually very proactive and put policy in place in 2003 regarding return to work before there was ever any obligation to do so. But with the new changes, we're going to have to make some additions and some, I guess, step it up a little bit. So my purpose today is threefold: to notify you of the new requirement, and that takes effect July 1st of 2012, and advise you that the self-funded workers' compensation program is working on developing the policies and procedures to meet that obligation, and we will probably come back to you with recommendations for an update to the existing policy, existing board policy. And then third, to ask for support from the board and especially from the CEOs, as we need to go to the campuses and to those departments, especially those that have higher rates of injury, to collaborate on the planning and the implementation of return to work, stay at work, that meet the university's needs as well as meeting the statutory requirements. So that is my purpose today, and I welcome any questions that you might have.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Leah, at the audit of our workers' comp program before the Legislative Audit Committee, I believe it was last spring, you and we received a compliment from several legislators about our, I guess, management or our loss rate. I forget quite the terminology. Would you take just a moment to, just from the, from what you just know, from working on this for so many years so well, what is it they said are you doing right, maybe that others can learn from?
I don't remember the specific comment, but our rates have been comparatively low to both the Montana average rates and to the national average rates that we charge as part of a premium to the campuses for. And there's a misconception out there that what a university does is have a lot of employees that stand in front of a classroom and teach, and of course we can have low rates, but you of all folks know that we have some of the most adventurous work activities probably in the country or the world. And our loss ratio, which is our losses, our costs in claims for worker injuries compared to what the premium we bring in, is also very low. So that we're managing that efficiently. We're using our money well. And I just did a quick comparison. A standard industry measure for insurance companies is their loss ratio and their combined loss ratio. And our loss ratio runs between 60 and 70%. For comparisons, the state fund looks for about has a goal of about an 80%. And we're a very different animal than state fund, but just so you do have a comparison. And our expense ratio, which is all of those costs that don't have to do with claims. It's, paying for me, paying for rent, paying for the day-to-day operations, runs between 6 and 8%, which is extraordinarily low. So we're managing the program very efficiently. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Are there any other questions from the board? Seeing none? Yes.
I will just comment that I'm realizing that there's several new regents, and it's been a while since we've been before the board. I do have just an overview of the program that I will leave with Lynette if anyone would like just a brief snapshot of what we are doing.
Great. Thank you, Leah.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item C, the faculty, staff, recruitment, and retention. First of all, I wanted to mention that chairing the Staff and Compensation Committee, I've worked very closely with the Commissioner's Office, and in particular with Associate Commissioner Kevin McCrae. And so I've asked Kevin today to go ahead and give us a little update on the faculty, staff, retention, and recruitment.
Thank you, Regent Robinson. The Commissioner staff, we have been very impressed with the degree to which you as Regents have been wanting to soak up information and research and get either up to speed on or have thorough review of the work that we've done in the last few years on recruitment and retention analysis and recommendations. So some regents were on the board when the 2007 Recruitment and Retention Task Force presented a report with recommendations to the regents, recommendations for how the university system could better situate itself to recruit and retain, hire and keep excellent faculty and staff. So to your credit, the regents who were not on the board at that time, we've been impressed with your desire to learn that information, learn the issues, become aware of faculty and staff concerns. So this is on the agenda because you are all knowledgeable of the work of the Recruitment and Retention Task Force, and you've all reviewed some of the recommendations that came out. And one of the top recommendations of that task force was that they recommended that the university system and the Board of Regents within the biennial planning cycle place careful emphasis on early planning for recruitment and retention issues, especially if they have economic impact. So for instance, compensation is one piece of the recruitment and retention puzzle. So the recommendation, one of the top recommendations was that the regents consider and plan early in the biennial budget process for any possible initiatives or positions or perspectives that the board may feel are appropriate in the development of the university system budget. So this is on the agenda because we would like some guidance from the regents on how in this upcoming budget cycle it might be most advisable in your view to invite faculty and staff input or solicit their feedback on recruitment and retention issues for the regents' consideration as you then go about the process of developing the budget in this upcoming year. The commissioner and I have discussed some options and an idea, and I'll let Sheila speak for herself, but Sheila and I were thinking one option that the regents have would be maybe later in this academic year, but certainly before the March Regents meeting, for instance, so maybe January, February, a timeline in there, depending on other meetings or situations where we might have regents getting together. We could have, for instance, a designated opportunity for a couple hours or a half a day or whatever the case might be, where ultimately that's the culmination where faculty and staff representatives in a coordinated fashion could share with you interests and ideas on recruitment and retention priorities that might have a budget impact. And the way we could get the ball rolling on that, one of your options would be you could direct us to immediately begin coordinating with and working with faculty and staff representatives on how we could maybe put this communication process together, and then ultimately the culmination of that would be this opportunity later in the academic year, but certainly well before the submission of any university system budget for faculty and staff representatives to come back to you and share their ideas.
Okay. Commissioner Stearns?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Kevin. I would add to that, I do recommend an event, if you will, an afternoon or a special analysis as the regents put together their budget priorities for the spring, for the governor's consideration, that in addition to all the faculty and staff representatives, every one of those presidents and chancellors is dealing up close and personal with the challenges of recruitment and retention, and every one of them has made a priority of trying to encourage you, us, legislative funding, governor's budgets, focus on solid pay plans and benefits that would help them be more competitive, because they're the ones who live on almost a daily, weekly basis with failed searches and with challenges. And I just wanted to add to that, Kevin, to say that if we do schedule such an event, and I've kicked it around just a little bit with Chairman Christian, but to find a time with all else that you do, members of the board, I can't think of a better way to spend a couple of hours with our leaders and faculty and staff leaders, several of whom are representing their groups and are out in front of us, to put together their data and update data that they looked at in 2007 and present to us and converse with us about where we are. So that is one of my tentative recommendations. I mean, you could perhaps stretch it out and have more of an advisory type group, but I almost think a major strike, a major focus on it, no pun intended, major, but a strong central focus on it, and early in the year, sometime in February, ideally, before the March meeting, might be really helpful. Thank you. And it should include the presidents, chancellors, and dean.
Thank you, Commissioner. Chair?
Yeah, just as far as, I guess, some board input on this, I've certainly said it before, but we spend a lot of time on budgets. We spend a lot of time on long-range building. The sort of irony of that conversation is that 70% almost of our budget is in our faculty and staff. And I think we need a very direct approach to how we handle that. And clearly it's a partnership with faculty and staff to try to move this thing forward. It's just a huge part of our budget, and I think that the recruitment and retention task force has added to that, but it just needs to be a similar huge piece of our attention and our deliberations and really our plan moving forward into the session. I think Commissioner's comments are right on track, as well as Deputy Commissioner McCray. I think it's got to be that team. It needs to include the presidents, but we really need to how we structure it, we'll leave in your hands, but we really need, I think, a direct and focused effort that gives that part of the budget the attention that it's due and the effort that it's due as we move into the next budget cycle and into the next session. It is the lifeblood of our system, clearly, and we've got to elevate it to that status in my mind.
Thank you, Regent Christian. I'd also like to see if there's any of the committee members have any comments regarding this topic or any of the other regions.
I mean, I really concur with what everything was just said. It's dead on right.
Okay. Commissioner McLean?
I was just
Regent
ready to
McLean.
concur, I think, with the sentiment conveyed by Chair Christian, that so much of our budget is dedicated to the faculty and the staff on our campuses that do the important and good work. And I think that this is a great opportunity for superb communication to begin in this regard as we get ready for the next legislative session. And I commend you and Associate Commissioner McCray for moving the agenda forward. I will be at the meeting as a member of this committee, as well as chair as the budget of the budget committee. So I look forward to those conversations and in hearing what all the folks will bring to the table. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. One other thing I wanted to mention too, before asking for public comment on this is, I think this speaks to a couple items, and I'm glad that you're in agreement with it, because in the listening sessions that the commissioner did, there were certainly faculty representatives that spoke to the same thing, that they would like to have a voice early on in the process. And so I think this is one way that we as a board can start to address that. And I think it also speaks to Chancellor Blackkett's one of your questions yesterday about how we might initiate some of that conversation earlier on. So at this point, I'd like to ask if there's any public comment concerning this item.
Could I jump into
Why don't we go ahead right here?
Yeah. And-
Marvin?
Yeah, thanks. I mean, I welcome the chance for the MUS-FAR. I mean, we don't get to say that acronym all that often in here, but the MUS faculty, Senate leaders, and participation in a discussion in any appropriate way along those lines. And I mean, and thanks for your giving attention to that. I mean, as you all know, I mean, we all look at the numbers, and the numbers are a little gloomy, and we look around at what we're still able to accomplish in this system. I mean, in spite of the difficulties with salaries, and I mean, it's possible still to do great things, but we just thinking, you know, the top-notch programs that we have, you can't continue to sustain when faculty vacancies continue to grow. And just looking at some of those numbers, but also hearing some of the details from those of us in the trenches on this, I think is always helpful to put a face on it. So we welcome a chance to participate in that. I don't know if you even looked, I mean, it percolates down even to students in a direct way. The MSU Exponent has a cover article this week just on talent at risk. You know, they just had one of their reporters running around looking at in departments that have been losing faculty as they are looking for, you know, opportunities. So anyway, we appreciate the chance to participate.
Great, thank you. Marvin?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the record, my name is Marco Farrow. I'm with MEMFT, and I appreciate the opportunity to comment. I want to thank the Commissioner and Kevin for bringing this forward. This is the culmination of a conversation that we've had sort of over and over again since I've taken over on this in my role to talk about updating this recruitment and retention study and really bringing it to the forefront. And I can't commend the Regents enough for the comments today and for doing this, because I think it's extremely, extremely important. And as Marvin said, it is a crisis. I want to offer the help of certainly the College Coalition of Union Faculty, all of the faculty that we represent across the system, and of course all the resources of MEMFT. We will bring forth any kind of resources we can to help with the research on this, but appreciate the offer. This is tremendous. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Farrell. Are there any other public comment?
I'm Kevin Thane, Chair of MSU Staff Senate, not faculty. Marvel will shoot me for that one. Want to echo the sentiments that have been expressed so far. Again, as we have mentioned to the board on previous occasions, we're impressed, we're excited, we're empowered really by the job that you do and your willingness to address the issues straight on. Your history and what you have done has demonstrated your commitment to the faculty and staff of the university system, and we appreciate that. As Marco mentioned, any resources that we can bring to the table in the discussions, we welcome the opportunity to do that, to move forward with you in a discussion. As the earlier study, the 2000 study said, and you have done, we appreciate the opportunity to be involved in the process early on, to be involved in substantive discussions and move forward with doing the best that we can for recruitment and retention of faculty and staff. And one of the things I want to note is that in this endeavor, we're a team with you. We want to do what's best, not only for the employees, but for the university system. Our hearts and souls are with you on this. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your sentiments. That was, I think, very well put. Well, regarding this issue, what I would suggest then is I'll continue to work with the Commissioner's office, our committee will, and start to put this together and find a date that's going to work for folks. Yes, Regent McLean.
Regent Robinson, as the conversation unfolded and as Marvin spoke and as Mr. Thane spoke, couldn't help but think that it may be beneficial for us to have a student representative at that table as well, to convey that dialogue with the student leadership across our campuses, because that dialogue directly impacts their education. So I would offer that we have at least one, perhaps more, at the table.
Thank you, Regent McLean. Okay. Well, thank you again, Kevin, for helping to bring this to our attention. That concludes the information and discussion items. We'd like to move into the consent items. And prior to starting with the consent items, I would like to ask Associate Commissioner McCray if there are any special mentions regarding these items, anything that we may need to be concerned about.
Thank you, Regent Robinson. Under labor agreements, there are 3 labor agreements on the agenda. The first 2, A and B, are the new initial first-time collective bargaining agreements covering faculty at Montana State University. We will have 2 representatives, leaders of those organizations, I think, make use of our public comment period at the end of the meeting, and they would like to address the board. The third contract, C, we, in working with the Montana State University Northern faculty leadership, I was informed yesterday that by a narrow decision, they were unable to get enough votes to ratify that tentative agreement. So we will keep at it, and we'll keep working at it, but we need to withdraw the Montana State University Northern C under labor agreements from the agenda.
Okay, thank you very much. I'd like to ask if there's any comments from our committee regarding the consent items.
Yes.
And are there any items that we'd like to, any other items that are of concern that we'd like to pull out separately? If not, then at this particular point, we have to ask for public comment as well on this. Yep. So I'd like to see if there's any comment from the campuses or any public comment.
I'm going to tell that I will do it now, actually. That's good.
Good morning. I'm Professor Sandy Osborne with Family and Consumer Sciences here at MSU and president of the tenure track part of AFMSU. I have 2 words to offer to you today: opportunity and gratitude. As AFMSU set out to write our first collective bargaining agreement, it was an opportunity. It was an opportunity for us to learn about parts of campus, the faculty, the departments, and their needs. I have been at MSU 25 years, but I'll tell you, I learned a lot about other parts of campus. Our team also reviewed contracts from other Montana University System schools, universities, as well as contracts in the West. Reading these contracts from other universities was an opportunity. We had the opportunity to collect data. We used SurveyMonkey as well as individual conversations and building meetings to seek input from our faculty. We learned a lot about tenure track faculty. We learned an awful lot about non-tenure track faculty, but I'll let my co-president, Currie Cargill, speak about that. We had the opportunity to learn about the Commissioner's Office, as well as the administration of MSU, through the bargaining team from MSU, as well as Kevin McCray. We genuinely strove to see the perspectives of one another, meeting after meeting. We also had the opportunity to learn collective bargaining law. Gratitude is our second word. I have sincere gratitude about the effort that all of the bargaining team and administration put forward. We bargained together, non-tenure track and tenure track together, and our team was 10 to 11 people at every meeting, and administration's team was generally 7. 19 months of face-to-face bargaining 6 hours a day when we met. I have a lot of gratitude about the hard work put in by both sides. I think of all the time that we spent in the computer science conference room, and then later we kind of outgrew that, and we went to a wonderful new building, the Animal Bioscience Building, and I think we kind of launched that conference room there. I have gratitude to the faculty at MSU who stopped me in the sub to express an opinion, who sent us emails, left a message, all giving their input in how to steer into the next step, if you will. We have gratitude for all the staff at MEA MFT who have worked with us for over 4 years to get to this podium today. I'm just going to savor this moment it's pretty special. I want to thank especially Tom Burgess with bargaining, and Melissa Case and Marco Ferro with organizing. We believe our collective bargaining agreement, built from the ground up, is a solid and unique contribution, not only for the faculty of MSU, but for the whole Montana University system. Yes, we know there is more work ahead as we implement this contract. But again, I think with this implementation will be an opportunity and a chance for more gratitude. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Osborne.
My name is Currie Cargill. I teach in the Department of Microbiology here at MSU, and I am the AFMSU president for the non-tenure track faculty, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today. I just wanted to say a word about my experience with AFMSU over the last 2.5 years and developing these collective bargaining agreements. I first want to express my appreciation to President Cruzado, to Kevin McCrae, to Tom Burgess, and to all the members of both of the bargaining teams, administration and faculty, tenure track and non-tenure track. It was truly an extraordinary learning experience. As Sandy pointed out, we learned a lot about each other, we learned a lot about our institution, we learned a lot about kind of the workings of MSU. And it was really important in helping us to build a cooperative working relationship. It truly was a lot of hard work at the table, but it was also truly cooperative as we learned from each other. I believe through all of our efforts, we've created fair documents of the highest quality, and I am particularly pleased to have a document for the non-tenure track faculty who do represent a large proportion of the faculty here at MSU, and they are truly dedicated to their teaching and to their students. And of course, the nature of these documents means that we will be talking again in the future. I do believe that we have set the standard for a cooperative, positive working relationship in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cargill.
Mr. Chairman, Marco Ferro with MEMFT, and I'd just like to add from the state perspective our gratitude, especially to President Cruzado and her team, Kevin and the commissioner and their team, and really for the board itself. I think as this whole process unfolded, there was a lot of curiosity, and the board had a lot of questions, and we got a chance to visit about what collective bargaining is and what it isn't, and it was very positive. And I think you've built an initial contract here that you're going to, that's going to be the basis of your relationship now for a long, long time, and it's critical on those initial contracts that you do it right, and I believe you have. I believe that you've done it in record time, and I think as folks around the country look to Montana State for academic leadership in the nation, I think you're going to find that folks are going to be looking to Montana State for leadership on collective bargaining. And so thank you for your professionalism and for the hard work that all went through this. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Farrow. I guess, do we have any other public comment? Seeing none, I'd like to ask if the committee would like to move these consent items forward for a vote. Okay. And at this particular point, I'd like to turn it back to change gears a little bit, turn it back to Chairman Christian regarding the vote and the single action item that we have.
Thank you, Regent Robinson. I think if it's appropriate, we have all of our board members here. We'll just move out of the Staff and Comp Committee to a Committee of the Whole. We can act on these now, and we'll stay as a Committee of the Whole through the action item, if that suffices. All right. Then I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman, with the exception that C under labor agreements needs to be withdrawn.
C in staff items or labor agreements?
Labor
right?
agreements,
Yeah.
yes.
All right. We have a motion. Regent McLean then has moved. So we have a motion before us to approve staff items A through K and labor agreements A through B. Is there any further comment from the administration, faculty, staff, or students on any of these items? Is there any further public comment on these items? Is there any further board comment? Okay, and we have before us A through K and A through B on the labor agreement. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The consent agenda is approved. We will move to the action agenda, and I'll turn it back to Regent Robinson to go through that item.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, today we have a very special occasion. And so these are some of those that we really enjoy. So this particular time on this item, what I'd like to do is turn it over to our President Engstrom and have him do an introduction here.
Thank you, Regent Robinson. Mr. Chairman, members of the board. What I would like to do is just make some brief introductory comments and ask you for the formal approval of this item, after which I would ask Chairman Christian and Commissioner Stearns to join us at that end of the table for the presentation, if I could then. The strength of any institution lies fundamentally in its faculty. And within the Montana University system, we are blessed with an outstanding faculty. At the University of Montana and within the University of Montana affiliation, we have award-winning scientists, humanists, artists, educators, journalists, business people. The Regents Professor designation exemplifies what it means to be a faculty member within our system. These are people who have excelled in every aspect of faculty duties: teaching, research, education, service. They are viewed by their peer faculty members as exemplars of what it means to be an educator within the Montana University system. The designation of Regents Professor is a rare appointment. At the University of Montana, you can count the Regents Professors on one hand. In fact, I think within the whole system, you might be able to do that. We were fortunate a year or two ago to have the University of Montana Western with its first Regents Professor, Rob Thomas. It is a rigorous review process. The nomination comes from the dean of the appropriate college. It is reviewed rigorously by a committee on campus, by the provost, by the president, by the commissioner of higher education, and then by you, the Board of Regents. It gives me great pleasure to introduce to you today and to recommend for your approval Professor of Pharmacology and Chair of the Department of Biomedical and Pharmaceutical Sciences, Professor Richard J. Bridges. I would ask your approval, and subject to that, we will then have a more complete introduction of Professor Bridges.
Thank you, President Engstrom. If it's the will of the committee here, I would certainly like to make a motion on behalf of Dr. Bridges in order to appoint him as Regent Professor.
Okay. So we have a motion before us to approve our action item, appointing Dr. Bridges as Regents Professor. Is there any public comment on this item? Is there any further comment from administration, faculty, students, or staff? Is there any board comment on the item? Regent Barrett.
Just join in all the things President Engstrom said. It's great to have a chance to reward good teaching. That's what we're all about. Thank you.
Well said, Regent Barrett. Any other comments? All right, then we have before us an item to approve Regent Bridges as a Regents professor for the University of Montana, Missoula. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? The motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Congratulations.
I would ask now if you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Stearns, and Chair of the Staff and Comp Committee, Regent Robinson, would you all join us up at this end, along with Professor Bridges, Dean David Forbes, Associate Dean Vernon Grunn, Provost Perry Brown, and Associate Provost Arlene Walker Andrews.
Good morning. Regent Christian, or Chair Christian, members of the Board of Regents, Commissioner Stearns, it's an honor and a privilege to be here today to be able to introduce Professor Richard Bridges as the most recent Regents professor. There are lots of things I could tell you about Professor Bridges. I'm only going to focus on one attribute because you have lots of written information about him. As Regent Barrett mentioned a minute ago, we're all about students. And often we find, especially at your very research-intensive universities, if a professor is an excellent researcher, people assume automatically they're a bad instructor. That does not need to be the case, and that is not the case with Professor Bridges. In his biochemistry course, he teaches our pharmacy students complex protein interactions, and he brings to the classroom very innovative computer technology, not only to explain to the students what is going on, but to show the students. And why is that important? Well, obviously better teaching takes place. That gets us to a dynamic learning environment, which President Engstrom is very, very interested in our university paying more attention to. But the major focus of our college is teaching students to become competent health professionals. Health professionals these days need to learn a lot about problem solving. And who best to teach problem solving, but professors who are on the cutting edge of their research in their laboratory to bring that information to the classroom. On a personal note, Regent Christian and I would know some people for hobbies ride horses, others play golf. Professor Bridges climbs mountains. He's climbed most of the mountains in Antarctica, where it's much, much colder than it even is here in Bozeman. So that's my introduction of Professor Bridges. He brings great talent to the classroom, and we're very, very pleased with this award for him and for our college and our university. And I'll turn the podium back over to Professor Bridges.
Thank you, Dr. Forbes.
Thank you, Dean Forbes. Regent Christian, will you join me then at this point in presenting the official designation of Regents Professor? Richard Bridges. Congratulations. With a newly minted medallion. I'm asking Arlene Walker Andrews to present that because she was the moving force behind the production of those medallions. Arlene?
This is something you have to wear at every convocation, every inauguration, not that we're going to have any.
Thank you, Arlene. And at this point, I'd like to ask Professor Bridges to make some comments.
It's nice to be able to sit down because my legs are getting kind of weak. This is a tremendous honor, and I just can't thank everybody enough, from the Regents, President Engstrom, Provost Brown, Dean Forbes, Associate Dean Grund. It just means an awful lot. truth be told, a lot of the successes that we've had, that I've had, have really been a product of just being fortunate to be in the right place at the right time. To build research programs, to integrate it with the curriculum, you have to have both administrative leadership in Main Hall, in our college, in our departments that want to do that, and probably most importantly, you have to have phenomenal colleagues and students to work with. And that's really been the case. And as David pointed out, I think what is most rewarding and remains inspirational is the idea of blending research and education. In fact, they can't be separated. I think if we look forward to what we need to provide to our students, probably the number one thing they have to be is innovators in the coming economy, what's happening. They have to be able to discover. They have to be able to collaborate. They have to be able to communicate. They have to be able to use informatics. They have to be able to work in teams. And I think that's all captured in the laboratory experience. And the way we blend them on our campus, the way they're blended at MSU, I think is really great. Thank you very much.
As you're returning to your seats, I just want to make one additional comment about Professor Bridges. In addition to being such an outstanding researcher and teacher and service member at the university, he regularly brings hundreds of high school and middle school age students to our campus to expose them to the wonders of science and research. And that really goes above and beyond the call of duty. Thank you, Rich.
Thank you, President Engstrom. And certainly the highest honor we can as a board bestow upon our faculty, and it is an honor for us as well. We appreciate the University of Montana bringing forward such an excellent candidate that really embodies the kind of tremendous faculty we have throughout the system. So we thank you very much. Congratulations again. That concludes our staff and compensation agenda. We have called for public comment on items. I think we'll move right to the two-year community college committee. That's right. Before we do so, wanted to let Blake Bjornson say a couple words. We were looking for him this morning, but I will proudly say he was in class, so he couldn't be here. As a student representative from here in Montana State, he wanted to make a couple comments.
Summer, could you pull up that? So I think we're going to start a new tradition, and I'm happy to be the first one to do it, that the host school, the student government, will just give a brief presentation about their student government just to inform the regents and the public about what we do. It's actually interesting how different the different student governments are. So once we get this pulled up, I'll let you guys know what we do here at ASMSU. So you can go ahead and just go right to the next one. So first of all, I wanted to, and I'll pass out our brochure as soon as I'm done. We've just finished a receipt of all the the 5 student fees that ASMSU collects, and so now we're going to be able to hand that out to students and say to students, this is what we spend for you guys with your money, which I think is incredibly important for transparency. And along with that, a brochure of those programs, a brief description, and how to get more information about them. And along with that, we're doing a student needs assessment, which is about a 20-minute comprehensive survey of ASMSU so that we can hear from students as to what they want from their student government. Because, oftentimes I think we get in the swing of doing the same thing year after year, and it's important to look at what we're doing and find out if that's what our constituencies want. So, some of the student representation stuff we do, the Senate, they have all kinds of different initiatives. One of the things they're looking at is possibly extending library hours. Our library's been getting lots of visitors and kicking people out at the end of the night, and we're thinking maybe we need to extend those hours. working on awareness so that, the types of things that you guys are talking about at the board level, the things that are happening in the legislature, the things that are happening at administration, those can be disseminated. And things like physical activity courses, the physical activity courses, we don't offer many here on campus, and students want that. So those are the types of things that Senate is working on. I work with the administration, and so do all the senators, on almost every committee here at MSU. So we represent students at University Facilities Planning Board, on the Campus Sustainability Advisory Council, et cetera, Budget Council, the list goes on. We represent here at Board of Regents and with MAS. You guys know all about that. A new relationship that we have is with the city of Bozeman. Mayor Krause here in Bozeman and I got together this summer and dreamed up this idea of meeting and starting an annual meeting between the two groups. So much of Bozeman residents are students, and it's important that they know what we're doing and vice versa. So a couple weeks ago we went down to the commission meeting on a Monday night, several senators and myself and the vice president, Joey Steffens, and had a really productive meeting, and several initiatives came out of that we'll be working towards, including renters' rights and parking downtown. It was a really great meeting. And finally, the state legislature, we've just the other day, 2 days ago, we closed the application for our lobbyist, which is earlier than we've ever done that. So we're going to be able to hire that student to be our student lobbyist. We'll get that person started at the beginning of spring semester, and they'll have an entire year to start building relationships and learning about how the legislature works, so that when January of 13 comes around, we're ready to go. I wanted to tell you about a couple of the programs, just a few of them that we do that help for student success and retention. We offer a daycare, ASMSU daycare, which is highly subsidized for students who have little ones running around. We have an outdoor recreation program which offers trips down to Yellowstone and rentals of rafts and skis and all kinds of things, the types of things people come to Bozeman to do. We have a spirit program, and I'm going to tell you a couple of the events that they're putting on today. But they do all of the homecoming stuff, and so just kind of building spirit and community. We have sustainability, which is a big topic for students these days. We have a fee that goes to fund a full-time position in an office, which is downstairs of this building. And another one that we do that I'm sure you've seen are these yellow buses, Streamline. They're running around all day. We're a huge funder of that, and then we have a late night service which we fully fund, which on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday nights runs from 8 p.m. to 3 a.m. to make sure students can get home for free and safely. One item I want to bring to your attention early that we're working on is a potential fee. It's a net zero fee, but we have a current situation with the student newspaper, The Exponent, that's, as Gail Schonsler, our local reporter, says, is that we're in a constant state of conflict of interest. And our Senate budgets for The Exponent, but at the same time, the Exponent is supposed to be very critical of the Senate, and it's just kind of an awkward situation. And we're trying to deal with that. I want you guys to know that we're thinking about these types of things. So I think we need to have a separation, and you might see a net zero fee, which reduces the student activity fee by X amount and brings in a new fee by the same amount, which will fund the Exponent. Go ahead. So I want to thank you guys for your continual student-first attitude. We really appreciate it. It's been great for me to learn how you guys work, and it's always nice to have student-friendly regents. And then I want to provide an invitation to you all, to everyone here and everyone else. We will be having our undie run at noon, and that's why I'm giving this a little early, is if you guys don't get out early, I got to go out and get my skivvies. But please join us. It's going to be a lot of fun. And then at 5:30, there's a pep rally downtown, and finally tonight at 9 p.m., there's a bonfire. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're all excited for tomorrow, and go Cats.
Yeah,
Thanks, Blake.
yeah, we have designated Regent Buchanan as our runner.
Right up.
He's the only one that has the legs for it.
Members of the board, I know I said we'd head to two-year committee, but it's come to my attention. We have a very special item to approve in the action portion of our Administrative Budget and Oversight Committee, and we have a very special guest, Mr. Jabs, who's the driving force behind that item, and he's here now. And before we lose him to other activities that are planned today, I would like to go to that item. I heard he's teaching a class, and I would assume he's doing the undie run, so I'm sure we need to get this done now. You saw it yesterday, certainly in committee. I'd invite President Cruzado to make some additional comments, or do you want us to pass the item and then make some comments?
Absolutely. Mr. Chair, members of the board, yesterday we had an opportunity to talk a little about the board item that we have submitted to for your consideration. Once again, the item requests authorization for Montana State University to move forward with plans for a $1.6 million to be allocated for the design of a new building for the College of Business. However, the engine behind that project is our alumnus, Jake Japs. And with your permission, I would like to expand a little bit more today about such an extraordinary individual. Jake Japs is an alum of Montana State University College of Agriculture, class of 1952, a Montana native, Saint Xavier, a family of 8 children, and his parents were immigrants. A mother from Ukraine, father from Poland. And Jake and his family exemplifies in so many ways not only the American dream, but certainly the best of what land-grant universities can do. With his education from Montana State University, Jake Japs went out into the world and became not only a successful businessman, a marvelously successful entrepreneur, but he became a leader. And that's, as we were having conversations yesterday, that's what we aspire to have. People who then not only move up in terms of social mobility, but people who help strengthen American democracy. And that's exactly what Jake Japs has done throughout his life. Montana State University is absolutely honored receiving his incredible generosity. And as I always like to say, he didn't have to give. None of our donors or benefactors have to give. However, we accept not only his incredible gift of $25 million, the largest in the history of the Montana State University, but moreover, we are grateful for the inspiration that he affords us, because this is certainly a vote of confidence to what happens in the classroom, what takes place in the lab, the faculty member that we attract and retain, and the students that we prepare for the future. So without further ado, I sincerely ask for support from the Board of Regents for this item. Thank you.
Thank you, President Cruzado. We have then the action item before us. I'd entertain a motion to approve item A.
So moved.
All right, the motion has been moved by Regent McLean to approve the design of the classroom and office building for a new College of Business at Montana State University. Truly an incredible gift and incredible opportunity. Is there a comment from the public on this item? Is there any public comment?
Mr. Chair, I think that Mr. Japs would like to.
We would love
make
to
some
have
remarks.
a comment. Mr. Jabs, thank you very much. I didn't want to put you on the spot.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here. I'm very humbled to be in front of such a great group of people, and thank you so much. You know, timing is everything, and it just so happened that the timing was right for this in my personal life, and I think for the university too. The timing is great. Economic times aren't real great right now, so it's an opportunity for me to step up and help, hopefully to energize the college. We're working on design, and we want it to be a real showplace for the university, and I think it'll help the university to grow and hopefully energize maybe some other alumni to step forward and
and also contribute to their alumni. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I can say Bozeman is loving their football, and I got to be here at the Northern Arizona game, and the crowd was pretty ecstatic about the football game, but they announced the gift for Mr. Jabs at one of the quarter breaks, and the standing ovation and applause from the crowd was absolutely incredible. It is very meaningful, it's very inspiring, and I think Montana is just truly amazed at the generosity, so we thank you very much. Is there any further public comment? Further public comment? Is there any further comment from the administration, faculty, students, or staff? Any further board comment? Seeing none then, we have before us a motion to approve item A of our action agenda for the design of a new academic classroom and office building for the College of Business, Montana State University, Bozeman. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? The motion carries. Congratulations, and thank you again very much. Do you want to finish this? Is that okay? Then we're in the budget agenda. We might as well continue on. Regent McLean, I'll let you introduce the items if you so choose, and we'll go from there.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yesterday, we heard from Terry Least regarding the renovation of Wilson Hall, the Writing Center. So I will turn it back to you now. I will make a motion.
Okay. We have then a motion to approve item B of the action agenda, renovation of Wilson Hall. Is there any public comment on this item? Any comment from administrators, faculty, students, or staff? Any further board comment? Seeing none, we have before us item B, to approve the renovation of Wilson Hall Writing Center. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Regent McLean.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the approval of item C, the design and construction of the Museum of the Rockies Planetarium upgrade.
Thank you, Regent McLean. Is there any public comment on this item? Is there any further comment from administrators, faculty, students, or staff? Further board comment? Seeing none, we have before us a motion to approve the design and construction of the Museum Rockies Planetarium upgrade. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Regent McLean.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move on to item D, and I do move approval to repair the mechanical and electrical systems in the Student Union Building at MSU Billings.
Thank you, Regent McLean. We have a motion before us, and is there any public comment on this item? Any further comment from administration, students, faculty, or staff? Further board comment? Okay, then we have before us a motion to approve the repair of mechanical and electrical engineering systems at the Student Union Building, MSU Billings. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Regent McLean.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move approval of item E, the Currie Health Service renovation at the University of Montana, Missoula.
Thank you, Regent McLean. We have before us an item. Is there any public comment on this item? Any further comment from administration, faculty, students, or staff? Any further board comment? Seeing none, we have before us a motion to approve the renovation of the Currie Health Service Center at the University of Montana, Missoula. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Regent McLean.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move approval of item F, reorganization of Montech, University of Montana, Missoula.
Thank you, Regent McLean. Is there any public comment on this item? Any further comment from administration, faculty, students, or staff? Any further board comment? Seeing none, we have before us an item to approve the reorganization Montech University, Montana, Missoula. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. Regent McLean.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move approval of item G, the authorization to name the University Theater the George and Jane Dennison Theater, UM Missoula.
Thank you, Regent McLean. Is there any further public comment on this item? Any public comment? Any further comment from administration, faculty, students, or staff? Board comment? I would say George Dennison has not only been a great friend, but was a great leader, and this is certainly a fitting tribute to both the work of George and Jane Dennison. I'm very proud to move this thing forward. Regent Robinson.
Mr. Chair, I would also like to thank President Engstrom for making the efforts to make sure that voices were heard and that there's acknowledgement to that as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Regent Robinson. Further board comment? Seeing none, we have before us an item to authorize the renaming of the University Theater to the University Theater, George and Jane Dennison Theater at the University of Montana. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Regent McLean? Do the consent agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move approval of items A through E on the consent agenda.
Thank you, Regent McLean. Motion to approve items A through E of our budget consent agenda. Is there any public comment on any of those items? Is there any further comment from the administration, faculty, students, or staff? Any further board discussion? Seeing none, we have before us motion to approve the consent agenda items A through E. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. I believe that concludes all of our budget items.
It does. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, and thank you for allowing us to, President Engstrom.
Mr. Chairman, I would just like to express my thanks to you for approving the George and Jane Dennison renaming opportunity and invite you to a celebration of that renaming that will occur around commencement this year for a very special reason. It is also the 50th anniversary of George Dennison's graduation from the University of Montana. And so he will be back to celebrate his 50th class reunion around commencement, and so we will have a great event at that time. Thank you.
Thank you, President Engstrom. All right, we will move then to the two-year committee meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Barrett.
We're going to start with an update on the comprehensive mission. But before that, I think Deputy Commissioner Seck had some comments he wanted to make, and then he will then lead the following discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As President Cruzado announced yesterday, we are losing one of our key two-year leaders in the state of Montana, Dr. Joe Schaefer. I took the liberty of asking a small group of folks who have either worked with Joe or currently work with Joe for some comments. And upon reviewing the comments, certain words surfaced again and again. And those words were passion, student-centered, communicator, commitment, team builder, responsive, creative, analytical, partner, mission builder, and faculty-focused. I extracted a few quotes from the responses, and I'd like to share them with you. First quote: "From the moment Joe Schaefer strolled onto the campus of MSU Great Falls over 9 years ago, he took our breath away. Not yet 30 years old, even then he had the C's of leadership: communication, character, courage, compassion, conviction, and of course, charisma. From the start, he pushed us to challenge our assumptions, innovate, and make strategic choices borne out by data." That was from Dr. Mary Sheehy Moe. Second quote: "In a nutshell, Joe is absolutely passionate about student success. He is committed to it. Bottom line, Heidi Passek. Third quote, Joe raises the understanding of what a community college is and what it does in our community, which has engaged new people in different ways. Heather Palmero. And the last quote, he has brought a culture of evidence to our campus in every corner. Judy Hay. Joe, we're going to miss you. And on behalf of the entire leadership of Montana's two-year colleges and two-year programs, we'd like to say good luck. Keep doing what you're doing, because the state of Wyoming and the students of Wyoming are going to truly benefit. Thank you. I'd also like to, before moving into the PowerPoint, just give you a brief update, because I think boards like updates on progress. And as you know, back in August, you made a very important move in creating a common approach to tuition for dual enrollment and a common approach to enrollment application procedures. And working with the two-year leaders across the state under the talented leadership of Tom Gibson, who led that effort, we made some huge progress. Last spring, in our partnership with the Montana Digital Academy, we had 9 online dual credit courses in spring of 2011. I'm happy to report to you this spring, in our partnership with the Montana Digital Academy, we will have 60 dual credit and dual enrollment courses scheduled with the Digital Academy, which is about a 667% increase. So we're pretty excited about that, and we'll keep you posted. We'll see if this works. It does. Good. As you know, another vote you made back in earlier in the summer was to approve the timeline for Strategy 1 of College Now to extend the comprehensive mission to Montana's colleges of technology. And we would, my co-chair and I, Chancellor Groseth, would like to share with you a brief update on the work that's been happening with that committee. And I'll provide an introduction, and then Chancellor Groseth will chime in. Obviously, the vision is about transforming lives and creating opportunities for the citizens of Montana, and particularly creating affordable opportunities to access college, and I would also emphasize flexible. Tyler Trevor put together these slides, which I think provide some good context for the growth of the colleges of technology. And as you can see, the light blue represents headcount growth over the past 10 years, and the dark blue represents student FTE. And you can see the general trend has been up significantly. This slide represents the growth of degrees awarded in the colleges of technology. The dark blue represents the applied programs, the Associate of Applied Science and Certificate of Applied Science degrees. The light blue represents the University Transfer Associate of Arts, Associate of Science degrees. And you can see the Associate of Arts, Associate of Science degrees have been growing. In fact, if you disaggregate them and look at them separately, the Associate of Science degree itself, with respect to degrees awarded, has grown over 900%. However, that's still very small with respect to what we hope to achieve through this initiative. Tyler Trevor also pulled this slide together, which gives you a representation of the real meat and potatoes of our workforce, those who are 25 to 49. And if you take a look at that age group in the state of Montana using 2009 data, you can see that out of every 1,000 people, we have 9 25 to 49-year-olds enrolled in Montana's two-year colleges. The regional average is about 21, and if we look at President Cruzado's former state, or her former location, New Mexico, they're at 38.3. So as we look at the College Now initiative, this is a group of people in Montana we will be targeting. We held listening sessions in October in Billings, Butte, Great Falls, and Helena. And at this point, I will introduce the themes which emerged from the listening sessions, but I'd like Chancellor Grosset to say a few words.
First of all, members of the board, thanks for continuing to have this on your agenda. This is a long-term process that will have long-term impact on the way we deliver post-secondary education and work with our communities in Montana. We held these statewide listening sessions in order to gauge from campuses and communities their thoughts and aspirations for our extending the comprehensive community college mission to our 5 colleges of technology. And we were assisted in that not only by the Deputy Commissioner and his staff, but also by the Strategies 360 folks and by our evaluator, Ann Clark. And we conducted them in an identical way across the state so that we could really measure the results and begin to distill some of the common themes that were coming out. And so I'll have John comment now on what those themes ended up being.
Thanks, Chancellor Grosset. We had 8 themes emerge, and basically to collect this information, we had various ways of collecting the information during the listening sessions themselves, as Chancellor Grosset mentioned, as well as we had a Zoomerang survey where we collected data, and we loaded all of that data into a qualitative software package called NVivo, and then began to code it, and these themes emerged. The first theme basically deals with the importance of changing the organizational culture, the rebranding process. Across the listening sessions, I think there were feelings that there would be positive outcomes, particularly from expanding the comprehensive two-year mission. And they also felt there's an opportunity to promote the COTs and make better awareness of their affordability. The second theme dealt with the importance of expanding the comprehensive mission. The university transfer dimension, which we saw a moment ago, is growing, but it's still very small piece of what the COTs do. The importance of providing more adult-friendly programming, flexible programming, the important role that the COTs play with developmental education, building partnerships, and I think something else that really surfaced from this was an urgency to make sure that we don't de-emphasize the workforce development portion of the comprehensive mission. Theme 3 dealt with funding and facilities. As you can see, this is a photograph taken during one of our listening sessions from the University of Montana College of Technology in Missoula, where that institution has grown so rapidly they're having to facilitate classes in trailer houses. So there were concerns at all of the colleges about space as they continue to grow, staffing, funding, sustainability, and also the importance of making sure that each of the colleges and their respective parent campuses are in the driver's seat with the localized planning for this process. The fourth theme dealt with expanding services to our students, to support the students. Interestingly, many comments surfaced at most of the listening sessions about how can we better reach out to the returning veterans, and child care was another issue that surfaced frequently. Workforce and community connections, the role that the colleges have and that a comprehensive two-year college has in engaging its business, creating those connections, and really serving workforce needs. And then the 3 embedded COTs Billings, Butte, and Missoula, we found some unique issues that really surfaced there. Coordination of services between the COT and the parent campus, concerns about duplication with the parent campus, is there competition with the parent campus, the importance of whatever we do, making sure that it's in full partnership with the university. And I think something else that surfaced at each of the 5 listening sessions, a belief that as we go through the rebranding, the affiliation with the parent university is very important and something we don't want to lose. And I think what surfaced from this in the rebranding discussion is name, affiliation, and place. Those were the 3 things. And then flexibility and responsiveness, reaching out to new and different markets, rapid response, and laddering of programs. And then finally, as Superintendent, Assistant Superintendent Steve York is sitting here with us today, the value and importance of connectivity with K-8, K-12, Office of Public Instruction and high school coordination through pathways, dual enrollment, and addressing any perceptions, misperceptions that still exist, and the importance of building partnerships with adult basic education, GED, which Dean Bingham shared his great example yesterday. November 3rd and 4th, thanks to the generosity of the University of Montana, we held a retreat at the Canyon Room at Washington Grizzly Stadium. And it was a great retreat. You can see some photos that give you a look at the hard work of these groups, and Chancellor Groseth will now talk about the retreat.
The retreat was an opportunity for us to come together, and I think it's really important that we have been doing this as a university system team in developing our campuses toward the comprehensive mission. It really gives us an opportunity to share one of those common themes that you talked about, John, the unique issues of the embedded campuses. We're all a little different, and we're all at different places in terms of being on the path toward achieving the comprehensive mission, and we'll all end up doing it in slightly different ways. But I think we learn from one another when we come together, and this retreat in Missoula in the early part of this month was really, I think, important in helping us understand one another's issues, and we talked about areas where we have expertise, where we could help other campuses, and areas where each of our campuses maybe needed some help and could use the expertise of other campuses. We're trying to create a unified voice, even though we won't end up all being exactly alike. And there's a great sense of commitment toward achieving the goal that the board has established for us, and we're moving forward. So thank you, John.
Thank you, Chancellor Groseth. One of the exciting outcomes of this work over the past year has been, I think, the momentum that we've gained, the interest that has developed, and particularly the support that our universities have provided to this effort. And speaking of the incredible support from President Cruzado and President Engstrom. And as a result, we've had a request to expand Strategy 1 from the 5 COTs to also include Gallatin College programs, MSU Northern, U of M Western's 2-year programs, and Bitterroot College programs. The next steps, we plan to continue our work with these additional colleges to schedule listening sessions, work with them to develop plans for extending the comprehensive mission and engaging them in the branding process, and integrate them into the December 15th, 16th retreat. December 15th and 16th, we will have a retreat here at MSU, thanks to President Cruzado's generosity, and we'll be actually in the Stadium Club. So we're kind of, we have a theme going on. And we will be further widening the circle at this retreat. We will be, Commissioner Stearns is already working to extend additional invitations to this retreat. We'll be focusing on our work with the campuses and extending the comprehensive mission to them. Each of the COT deans are expected to come to the retreat with a draft plan. They've been working on that. And we'll also engage in conversation about the rebranding and naming conventions. Lumina has been a huge supporter. They are sending 2 individuals from a firm in New York City called Public Agenda, in addition to the work that Strategies 360 is providing us through Helena. And our advisor, Judy Hyman, will be with us from Lumina as well. And Andy Goodman, who is a national speaker and consultant with respect to branding and rebranding, will be with us as well. So it promises to be a phenomenal retreat. Chancellor Groseth, would you like to say anything else about the retreat?
Yeah, I think in addition to the rebranding conversations which will take place, we've asked each of the campuses to kind of bring an outline and a status report of where they are and in terms of their plan toward moving to the comprehensive mission. And it will be our goal to present to the board at the January meeting some draft documents so that you can see where each of the campuses is in terms of that path. So.
Great. And so December through February will be very busy as we work on this, as we work with not only the 5 COTs, but the 4 other campuses. And then our goal is to work to the March Board of Regents meeting, where we will present the comprehensive mission expansion plans, of course, resource issues related to that, the renaming, rebrand recommendation, action to approve the plans, and action to approve the new names and brand. Excellent progress is being made. Chairman Barrett?
Thank you. You get my computer's kind of moving up. We're going to move right from this. Well, first of all, let me ask if there are any comments. Yes.
Chairman Barrett, Commissioner Stearns, members of the board, first chance to speak up. Having sat here for a day and a half, I wanted to say it's a great honor to represent Superintendent Juneau at this board. It's exciting to see the work going on. I will leave here with a renewed positive feeling about our post-secondary education in the state of Montana. It's a good feel. I want to reiterate our commitment to this process, the parts where we can be of assistance in the K-12 educational realm. We will work closely, and we're committed to assuring that this is a successful project. The Big Sky Pathways portion of this, of course, is a very important part. It's a huge paradigm shift. I feel like we've made good progress this year in talking to university folks as well as K-12 folks. It's a huge shift. We're making progress. We need and we have a long way to go, but we will get there. I think that our hope would be that the transition from the senior year to post-secondary education would be seamless. In fact, at some point, someday, it would be really nice to walk into a high school and ask a student, where are you going to attend college? And have them say, I'm already attending college, to the point where there's a very fine line between those 2 steps. That's what we're committed to do in helping. A good example of this is Dan Bingham's work with ABE. We feel really strongly that when you get a student to the table, you want to keep them there. And when you have to have them get up and change tables, you lose them. So by having it located right in the AB, as Dr. Schaefer has done in Great Falls as well, our chances of retaining them in the post-secondary portion of our education system has got to be greater. So with that, thank you for allowing me to fill in for Superintendent Juneau, and we're behind the efforts.
All right, thank you. Any additional comments on that report? Yes, Regent Tuss.
Thank you, Chairman Barrett. I think I may have a question for perhaps Chancellor Callahan, if I can. I always get confused when we talk about the College of Technical Sciences, and maybe this is part of the rebranding effort at MSU Northern, because it's not a traditional COT as we talk about that. And so I don't know if I'm the only one that when I read the paper about COTs and that we have a separate College of Technical Sciences at this institution, my guess is that there's probably general confusion about that. Has that been discussed or is that being addressed? Because it's different.
Thank you, Regent Tuss and members of the board. I think you captured it well, and there is some confusion. Northern historically, if you think of embedded or you think of super embedded, Northern historically has had the range of programs, certificate, even departmental certificate, Certificate of Applied Science, Associate of Applied Science, Associate of Arts, Associate of Science, intertwined closely with the four-year programs. Smooth transitions historically into those programs. And that predates the transition from vocational technical centers with their special mission to the colleges of technology, and now a new evolution that's occurring. Northern is very proud of its tradition there, and it's working very well. The transitions and the seamless part of that, we'll have students come in, declare Associate of Applied Science and Automotive, and then perhaps redeclare after 1 year to a baccalaureate in automotive. It works quite well, and we're quite proud of the way it's structured, and I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. And, excuse me. Actually, Regent Tuss, it's a good question because that, you came in and saw that confusion, if you will, right away. That's, in fact, why we're going through this whole branding exercise. If it's confusing as you sit here and you live in that community, imagine to students around the state who aren't that familiar. And that's why everything that John just went through, we're going to try to create one overarching image, one overarching message that we'll be able to promote these institutions to all the students in the state. Each one can do what it does best and keep its own identity. But when someone's living in some city, some student in high school needs to have a clear picture of what's out there for them. And many of them probably don't appreciate that opportunity is there. And we owe it to them to deliver it. And in fact, on that topic, I'll say that the comments Deputy Commissioner Seck made on extending the college now to the other institutions resulted from some conversations that he and I had. So I'd like to ask if it's the sense of the committee that we indeed do that, to extend that to Western, to Northern, to the Bitterroot, to Gallatin programs. Are you, as members of the committee, do you think that's wise that we should do that? And if so, I mean, we want to have the whole board nod, and so John feels he has appropriate directions.
Yes, absolutely. I think it's a great idea.
Okay, and is that, Mr. Chairman, would you think that would be the sense of the board to extend that? Okay, John, you got your marching orders. And, of course.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and John, and all, good work. I would like to make a couple of comments. I do think you see coming to fruition here, leading up to action that you will take in the March meeting, what I consider to be one of the signature achievements of the Board of Regents during my time as commissioner. One of my very early conversations with you as you were developing strategic plans in 05, 04, 06, relating to, Regent Tuss, your word, confusion and underutilization about two-year degrees in Montana. And so that, along with working more closely with K-12 and better communicating the achievements the broad achievements of the Montana University system, I think Regent Buchanan were one of the top three, those were the top three things that came out of many of our early discussions in my years as commissioner. Fast forward then to 2007, and I look at Mr. Trevor, because we saw this opportunity, how could each state in the country, what particular issue could it focus on that could increase, diminish confusion and increase access and affordability to have more participation by adults and students in colleges and universities to successful graduation. And we said, our data is really clear on this, but at that moment, boy, then we thought we had fatigue, but we did, and we almost passed on this opportunity. But Tyler said, it's just a 2-page letter. I'll write a 2-page letter to the Lumina Foundation. And there's nothing like a 2-page letter and a little momentum and some interest and great response from the Lumina Foundation that led the following spring, Mr. Chairman, to you and I and a team of 6 or 7 others, including Pat Wise, going to North Carolina and focusing on Montana's issue, and of those 10 or 11 states, Montana being chosen among 3. So I will skip a lot now of the intervening steps, except to say that through the efforts of a great many people, including John and Mary Moe and so forth, we are coming to a point, some real decision points. And I will just conclude by saying, I really think, and I'll say it again in March if we get there, when we get there, that we are making history. We are figuring out how to form a system, capital S or small s, I don't care what you call it, but in many ways what it is a very strong consortium, because it includes the community colleges with their unique governance. It will include in an affiliated way the very fine tribally controlled community colleges. It will include expansion to places like the Bitterroot and probably Richland County and areas in the Bakken. This, you could, frankly, I'm quite gratified that Western and Northern and the Bitterroot and Gallatin want to come on board. We are, without unraveling governance arrangements, we may be, I think we are figuring out how to create a system without blowing up something else to do that. This is extremely hard to do. Interestingly, John Seck's whole doctoral dissertation was on transformative creation of a community and technical college system in the state of Maine. I read it carefully because we're trying to do something quite innovative and as distinct in our own way. And so I just want to say, the upcoming retreat here, or let's see, yes, it'll be at that wonderful place several of us were privileged to visit last night. The Stadium Club. I'm not sure if that's where Andy Goodman will spend some time with us, but I know that Steve York, who attended the conference with us in Indiana, and Regent Robinson, and a couple of trustees like Susan from Miles Community College and Bob from Flathead Valley Community College, all of us who saw Andy Goodman, he's national caliber in terms of his ability to teach and inspire us how to tell our stories. I think you may, for part of what he does, want to rent a theater, or else you ought to. Was he not? I mean, Major and Steve and others can say one of the most sort of engaging, interesting, inspiring teachers any of us have had in this whole process. So the fact that over and above and partly within our Lumina effort, that they've arranged for Mr. Goodman to be with us at this retreat means that for many of you, I just suggest you won't want to miss it. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I really think that this committee, which at one point, 2005 or so, I wasn't sure we needed this 4th committee of the Board of Regents, and I think it is becoming one of the most important committees we have, at least in terms of the pressing nature of its work. the fact that it has had to do so much invention, so much creation, and that the day will come in the future where all of us, I certainly will with pride, say we were present at the creation. Thank you.
Thank you. And you're always looking for teaching moments. I guess the teaching moment we take away from here is if something floats to the office, let Tyler write the letter.
Chairman Barrett.
Regent Robinson.
Thank you, Chairman. I wanted to add something, and I thank you for that description of this work, and having been a part of it, a small part of it, certainly I've seen the results of this already, and so I think it will have the type of impact that you're talking about. I think also adding the additional campuses, I think is a good idea, and including that, especially with their active participation. I think taking that same concept in mind, getting back to what I had mentioned earlier too, is that I think there needs to be, and I'd like to see, authentic engagement with tribal colleges, whether it be this retreat and any other opportunity involved with college now, because it really does have the potential to impact all of Montana that way, and that's how Montana is unique in the higher education opportunities that we have. So much like what we've seen with President Engstrom and President Cruzado and their efforts, which is true active participation and listening sessions, I think we need to, didn't mean to make you spill your coffee there. But I think if we can truly make that an active part of this, I think it will go even so much further. So that's one comment I have.
Yeah, thank you, Regent Robinson. I guess I'll add to that. One of the factors I think that contributed to our getting the Lumina grant was the fact that we had the matrix of tribal colleges to be able to work with, and it created an interesting fabric for them. And I'm hopeful, that outreach, that we've always attempted that and sometimes succeeded, sometimes not. I'm thinking that this venue, this 2-year venue and this type of thing might be a more welcome place, an easier place for them to start working together and having access. It may be an environment in which both of us might be more comfortable and work it. So I think your comments are totally appropriate. Any other comments on the, yes, sir?
It's, one thing that I forgot to mention that I think is really important. I did attend 2 of the listening sessions, and one at the at the University of Montana in Helena, and then one at a human resource luncheon in Missoula. I don't think that we've mentioned enough that those business partnerships are huge to this whole process. And Dr. Seck did a wonderful job that day. The folks in that room were absolutely thrilled to have input. It was a great experience, a great connection to the business world. One of the themes that came out regularly was how do we react quickly to the needs of a changing and growing economy. And I think we're facing that a bit right now in the northeastern section of the state, and we have a task force assembled to tackle those problems. So I think that bears mentioning.
Thank you. Thank you. So any additional, yes, Regent Thiel.
I just wanted to make a quick comment and compliment Dr. Seck on the incredible work that he and his group have been doing, because I think that the gains that we're hearing about in transferability, in pathways in the high schools, in dual enrollment, do have the capacity to really shift how the system works, to make it so that it's more systematic, so that we have solid transfer between K-12, 2-year education, baccalaureate degrees. And I think that this is really an incredibly important task that you're undertaking, and it sounds like you're doing an incredible job.
Thank you, Regent Thiel, and the real thanks really needs to go out to the 2-year leaders, and those folks have been doing the heavy lifting, and some of the key folks in the Commissioner's office, like Tom Gibson I mentioned, and Sue Jones and others who have really stepped up and been making this happen. So thank you.
Any additional public comment or comment from from among campus leadership on that presentation? Any additional comment from among the board? All right, we'll move on to our next item, which is discussion of workforce development. Again, Dr. Sack.
I think they're pulling up the PowerPoint. Great. This, and I'll move through this pretty quickly, but this PowerPoint discussion really focuses in on Goal 2 of the Board of Regents strategic plan, which is focused on increasing responsiveness to workforce development needs in the state. Montana is really facing a perfect storm as far as a workforce shortage. First, the forecast that we have is a 13.5% gap between demand for skilled workers who have an associate degree or higher and the available supply by 2025. Our population is aging. 25.8% of Montana's population will be 65 or older by 2030, making Montana the 4th oldest state in the nation. As a percentage of undergraduate enrollment, our two-year colleges are still only half of the national average, even though we have grown significantly over the past 10 years. This map provided by Larry Swanson from the O'Connor Center of the Rocky Mountain West at the University of Montana gives you a look at the fact that about 2/3 of our state, the western 2/3 of the state, are where the majority of the population is concentrated. This slide, also provided by Dr. Swanson, gives you a graphical representation of the population of Montana from west to east, with two islands in the center, Yellowstone and Cascade, and then you can see the population to the east. If we take a look at Montana west to east, the western 2/3 obviously have the population majority, shifting economy, higher unemployment. The eastern 1/3, we're looking at smaller infrastructures, but that's a place where there's a lot of job growth right now and lower unemployment. Let's take a second to talk about the changing economy of eastern Montana. You can see this slide represents, of course, agriculture is still one of the stable economic forces, but the picture on the right is one of the man camps, is what they're called, that are springing up in northeast Montana and the western Dakotas to deal with the economic development stemming from the Bakken Reserve and the Three Forks Reserve in northeast Montana. Also, we can't forget up to our north in Alberta, it's the oil sand development. And what's interesting, the Canadian Energy Research Institute estimates capital investment at $218 billion over the next 25 years in the oil sands region to our north. Montana communities such as Billings are already benefiting from this development with new companies such as Berry Y&B, which are focusing on fabrication to support the oil sands. It's a great start, but a long journey ahead for northeast Montana and the western Dakotas. By 2017, Goldman Sachs is predicting the U.S. could surpass Saudi Arabia and overtake Russia as the world's largest oil producer. We can't forget about coal development with, as our governor has reminded us many times, Montana is home of 25% of the remaining coal in the nation, and Wyoming has about 14%. So with Montana's changing economic landscape, we have many opportunities for our two-year colleges and universities to further engage workforce development strategies and opportunities. I'd like to highlight the Billings Gazette supplement, and I think this only ran in the Billings Gazette, but this is about a 12-page supplement focusing on career opportunities. And I was reviewing it, and about 85% of all jobs listed in this are jobs that are in northeast Montana or the western Dakotas. So as we talk about workforce challenges and opportunities, some of the key things that we need to keep focused on is that workforce development must be regionally based and customized, intercoordinated, well-designed and adaptive, focusing on workers at all levels, those who maybe don't even have a GED, all the way up to those with master's degrees and above. Workplace-oriented, meaning that it's flexible, offered nearby or on the workplace, at the workplace, and well-funded. This is an existing model. I'm not suggesting this is one that we want to emulate, but it looked to me like a good model. It's called Train North Dakota. It's a coalition of 4 colleges in western North Dakota who work together to help address some of the significant training needs that are developing in that region. This is a sample of a coalition grant which was funded. This was not a TAA grant, but another source, and they received about $20 million. So as we talk about the needs that exist, we also need to talk about the resources we have. And I'm not specifically focusing on northeast Montana, I'm really talking about the entire state, because workforce development is a key piece of our strategic plan. But how can we align the workforce and training needs to help address Montana's changing economies? The needs, skilled workers, obviously, which includes everything from just-in-time training to long-term training to degree programs. The resources are, of course, Montana's 2-year and community colleges and our universities, our flagship and regional universities. We heard at our listening sessions, and the commissioner heard at her listening sessions, the need for flexible scheduling, online, hybrid, field training, stackable credentials. I believe we have the resources here in Montana to really collectively work to address those needs. And we've done a lot of work establishing educational pathways to help ensure, do everything that we can, that our high school students don't leave the state. So as we're looking at growth, particularly in northeast Montana, that will impact infrastructure and the need for support of infrastructure, but that also generates prospect of long-term growth and development. Again, we need to talk about how can we leverage our collective training and education resources to address this. So in short, we have the collective strength of the Montana university system, and we have the ability to respond to the changing workforce training needs, and hopefully, through this effort, find some money through some grants and other initiatives or corporate support to move forward with this. Some suggested next steps for this workforce development initiative include convening college, university, and tribal partners, inventorying potential training resources, discussing possible coalition frameworks. It's important to ask the industry, sit down with industry and ask them, what do they need? What can we do? Maybe it's as short as one day, one afternoon, or maybe it's a stackable certificate. Explore partnerships with school districts, industry associations, state agencies, apprenticeships. How can we leverage the power of partnerships to move ahead and ultimately engage both areas of economic growth and areas of economic slump so we can find synergies to help both address their needs? And our committee is recommending to return to the Board of Regents with recommendations in March. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Seck. Any public comment on the presentation? Any comment from the administration staff? Any further comments among the Regents? Commissioner Stearns.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to say that a task force has done, for the past year, some preliminary, work group, I should say, look at the needs of particularly north central Montana, but as we're beginning to hear and learn, this extends, we even heard it at breakfast this morning, well into the state. And so I would like to ask for your guidance, if not approval, to elevate this a little bit from the work group that's been co-chaired by Jim Cargill and Rolf Groseth, and ask President Cruzado and Deputy Commissioner Seck to join and to lead this, along with Pat Wise from the governor's office, and to make some recommendations of the beginnings of a plan of what is the university system's responsibility and opportunity to address these workforce needs. They are immense. I see huge opportunity as well as challenge for your successor, Chancellor Callahan, for your successor, Dean Schaefer, for Rolf, for President Cruzado. Some of it has to do with mining and petroleum and all that area. For you, Chancellor Blackketter, there is a whole lot, Mr. Chairman, that we can bring to the table, working with Miles and Dawson Community Colleges, of course. They're physically the closest. The tribal colleges in that area. I really think that I almost should skip work group and up past task force and go to strike force. They are desperate in north central Montana for, they're not sure what. As I said yesterday, the most urgent of the listening sessions I attended all fall was in Sydney. And they know, at the very heart of a storm, and it may not be a perfect storm. It is just a huge storm. And they know that, and I mean no pun here, that where there is energy, there is energy. And there is need, and education plays a role in the modern economy. And that's where we come in, and I would be the first to say that after meeting with a group of leaders in Sydney, their mayor and others, over a year ago, that while we have made a start, and I'm sure that Presidents Cargill and Hickswaw would agree with me, there is much more that we can do, but that we need to do it collectively. So I recommend to the board that I ask, I'm not even sure exactly what I'm asking for, but a plan, I mean the beginnings of a plan, so that they don't feel stranded from the sort of the Billings, Great Falls, Havre area heading east, that all of our attention and educational work has been focused on the West. We need to pull together in really creative, innovative ways, and I ask two new people to join and help lead that, again, along with Pat Wise, but that would be President Cruzado and help, John, sorry, right next to me, I wasn't looking out there, Deputy Seck, Commissioner Seck, to help with this and to, with everything else that is on your plates, and I know it's immense, but to pull together these folks that I have visited with, and I see them nodding, and to bring something to us, if not in January, at least the core of some ideas in January, and to proceed with all deliberate speed. Mr. Chairman, I hope something like that meets the common sense test for you.
Thank you, Commissioner Stearns. Well, certainly from my perspective on the committee, it does. I see that other committee members are shaking their head, so I don't, and Regent Buchanan, so I don't think you need any more assurance than just lost ahead. I mean, it's interesting. It seems counterintuitive in one way that we have an area of very low unemployment over there, and one of the great needs is workforce training. But I think it is true. I was curious when John had that job fair thing with all the jobs and talked about how many were there. I was thinking, I wonder how many of those require some sort of certificate or advancement, what kind of percent, because there is a lot of work there, but it's the thing we can do there to benefit the state of Montana and to address, for example, the long-term needs of the institution, so the average family wage goes up, is that there are jobs there for people besides just the wrong end of a shovel, and we need to prepare them for that. So it's, even though there's unemployment, it's a great opportunity to raise the level of the employment there, and we'll have to find a way to address that. Regent Tuss.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As an economic developer in this part of Montana, I would certainly say that arguably there's nothing more important at this point in our state's history than engaging in this initiative in terms of what the Montana university system can do to assist the private sector develop appropriately in this part of our state. So I strongly support this initiative, and thank you for all your work on this.
Yeah.
Regent Barrett, members of the board, as we recently had our visits to the tribal colleges and reservations in eastern Montana in particular last week, this was certainly a topic on their minds, and this would be a good opportunity for us to pull them into the discussion and partner, and I encourage the task force to do that. Thank you.
And Dean Bingham.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, I'm intrigued by Commissioner Stern's idea about creating a strike force, elevating that task force to a strike force, and I would hope that we would take a look at our available resources. As I understand a strike force, you want to assess your resources and get after it right away so that you're able to get to the heart of the issue, the problem. We have significant resources in the two-year colleges around the state that I think, if utilized properly, could turn on a dime, turn out many qualified individuals in a very short period of time if we utilize those existing resources. Thank you.
Thank you. Regent McLean.
Thank you. I think that Dr. Bingham's comments, I think mine will just dovetail that, and I think that perhaps one of the ways as we consider to move forward with this strike force, Freudian maybe, with this strike force is to consider how best we can involve the 9 through 12 community in helping them to most rapidly respond with curricular changes so that certificates can take fewer months, et cetera. And I know that those pathways are in place, but I know sometimes for schools to get those pathways can be time consuming. So I think that K-12 community voice at the table as we move forward is going to be a real critical one.
Thank you. Any additional comments? Comments from among the board? Okay, Mr. Chairman, the next item we have on our agenda is a panel of the community college presidents. If I might suggest, while they're relocating themselves to the table there, that we take a short 5-minute break, allow them to do that, and we can all come back refreshed. And we'll restart at 11. Well, then we want, on the screen, we all should note, this is the baby Villa, born at midnight last night, or about 11 o'clock the night before. And let me just get the official here. This is Dane Bryant Villa. So Dan won't hear us, but get a little hand for him. Oh, and his wife. So I did tell him, I did send him and told him it was wonderful. It's a really great thing. Congratulations, and get back to work. So we're going to have a panel discussion with our community college presidents. The stated topics are goals, plans, challenges, and workforce development issues. And frankly, I guess you're president, so whatever else is on your mind that you feel like you want to talk about, you get to do it. That's one of your prerogatives. I'll ask John, I know he's had some interactions with all of you, just to say a 1 or 2 introductory remarks, and then how you handle it among yourselves, you'll do. And then members of the board may follow up. with questions, and Deputy Commissioner Robinson is here since he's interacted with a lot of you recently, or two of you recently, on banner implementation and other things. He may interject with questions too. So thank you, Deputy Commissioner Seck.
Thank you, Chairman Barrett. And I think what might be good is to begin, let's begin with Western Montana, and we'll progress east. So with President Karras, if you could share with us from the perspective of Flathead Valley Community College, goals, plans, and challenges you and your college are dealing with.
Thank you, Deputy Commissioner Seck, and Chairman and members of the board, Commissioner Stearns. No, is the mic on?
Is the
I'm not sure that.
Is your light on?
My light is on.
Okay. Is your light?
I'm all lit. Say I'm all lit, but now I'm also live. Okay.
You sound, yeah.
I wanted to start just to share with you a little bit of an enrollment update. I know Dr. Trevor mentioned yesterday that we have seen a slight enrollment decrease, but since fiscal year 08 through fiscal year 11, we had a 55% increase in enrollment. So we had a head count decrease this fall compared to last fall of 40 credit students, although that translated to 147.7 FTE, which we think in the Flathead Valley actually means two things. One is the economy is getting a little bit better because many of our students have to work while they're in college, and so they're able to find more work, so more students are working. While they're in school, students are taking fewer credits this year than they did last year. The other issue is that, as many of you know, we had a very large increase in enrollments in Trade Adjustment Act and Workforce Investment Act funded students who were funded to attend school full-time. In our largest graduating class ever this last May of about 388 students, 25% of those graduates were TAA and WIA funded workers, which is a great thing that all of those individuals were able to complete a degree or certificate and finish college, and many of them are working in the state, not all of them in western Montana, I'm sorry to say many in eastern Montana, but they are employed and they were successful in completing their education. But that large decrease in those graduates did impact our overall enrollments. Although when we adjust for the dislocated workers, we actually are looking at an approximately flat enrollment this fall compared to last fall, with the increase in first-time freshmen this fall compared to last fall. So we don't see that as being a negative trend at all for the college, but actually, after a 55% enrollment increase over 3 years, I think everybody at the college is relieved to have a little bit of breathing space to readjust and look at how we are better serving students. So I wanted to share with you some of the ways and our goals and the changes we're making to better serve our students at FVCC. As you know, as a community college, we're very affordable. You talked yesterday about the cost of higher education and the amount of loans that students are taking out. One of the advantages of community colleges, we're very affordable. Our students, full-time students who are in-district residents, pay $18, $28 per semester to attend college in tuition and fees, and they have very few loans to repay. We are partnering with our K-12 schools in both Lincoln and Flathead County. We are now offering compass tests at the high school so students can determine before they attend college and while they're still in high school when they're juniors and seniors what they need to do to be college ready in math and English. We're working with, our faculty are working with the high school faculty to assure seamless transition between courses to align the coursework to better serve those high school students. And we're certainly expanding our Running Start or dual credit programs in all of the high schools through programs at our campus, concurrent enrollment, and online opportunities for those high school students. We offer a program called College for a Day. I know some of you have heard about that, where we bring in high school juniors and seniors to our college. They spend a day attending short classes for half an hour each. They get to choose which classes they'd like to take. And for a lot of those high school students who've never been on a college campus, it's a great opportunity for them to see wherever they want to go to college, that college is a place that is welcoming and can provide them with a lot of opportunities. We have a number of business industry partnerships that are really, as I mentioned yesterday, in response to Regent Robinson's question, that without our business partners, we wouldn't be able to offer many of the programs that we do. Our students actually built a mobile welding trailer. We had a need to train welders at our Lincoln County campus. We didn't have a welding facility there. Our welding and electrical students outfitted a tractor trailer as a mobile welding lab. We were able to take it over to Lincoln County and use it there. We're actually bringing it back to our campus because we've had a growth in the need for welding students in Kalispell, and we're also training a number of high school students in welding, so that will provide an additional facility for us, and it's able to travel anywhere in the state if the need arises. Our business programs, both credit and non-credit, are quickly responsive to the needs of our local employers, whether they're short-term or long-term training. We're able to do a lot of customized training for our local employers. A number of things we've done to really focus on student retention and student success. We were very fortunate a couple of years ago to receive a Title III grant for student success. And some of the things we've done through that grant are to develop a degree audit that was built fully in-house because many of those programs are so expensive. So our students and our faculty are able to track our students' degree objectives and to look at the courses they need to take to complete their degree in a timely and successful manner, which courses they've taken, and then that audit can go on. Students can check on it themselves each semester when they register for classes. Faculty advisors can track those students. And we're also able to, when a student completes their degree, even if they haven't applied for graduation or for a degree or a certificate, we're able to automatically identify that student as having completed that degree or certificate. So the degree audit's really been a great thing. We're starting, just piloting it this year, and we're expanding it to all of our programs, all of our degrees. We also have implemented an early warning system so that students who don't attend classes are identified very quickly. Their advisors are notified, the faculty notify the counseling office, and we're able to connect with those students to find out why they haven't been coming to class and to provide them the support services they need to be more successful in their education. We've also, because many students don't connect with their advisors or don't know who they are when they first start, we've implemented a new advising program where students, first-year freshman students, come into a group advising situation and aren't assigned to a specific advisor until after classes start. And then we now send all of our students a postcard with an advisor's picture on it and their number, and we have the advisors have a way to better contact the students. So we're trying to find different ways. We're certainly using the digital connection as well, but we found that the postcards also work, especially for the homes where students are living with their parents. They do tend to get those. We are working with training faculty on better advising and counseling, and I know Chairman Christian mentioned attendance, and that's something that Vice President Jones is working with our faculty as well as looking at whether or not we're going to be requiring faculty or faculty will be taking attendance for many of our students to better identify which students aren't coming to class and how to help them be more successful in their completion. We have a help desk for our online students that's run through our extended learning campus in Libby so that all of our digital students have the opportunity to have immediate assistance when they need it. We've been very fortunate to receive a number of grants that have allowed us to have our undergraduate students participate in research projects that they probably would not be able to do if they were not at a four-year college or university. They're involved in chemistry, physics, working with NASA, with local employers like Zinc Air. We're also been identified as a GI-friendly school, and we received a National Science Foundation grant to help returning vets get into engineering through the STEM program. We've added a new biotechnology program, again, thanks to a National Science Foundation grant. And we've been tracking the success of our transfer students because about 60% of our students who enroll identify themselves as transfer students. And many of our students transfer here in the state of Montana, although a number do go to places like Columbia University and Stanford and Johns Hopkins, and all those credits from FECC transfer, so we're very proud of that. But our students who do transfer here in Montana, we've been able to track, and their grades that they're receiving compared to the native students who've started at the four-year schools are comparable, if not better, in many of the areas. So we're very proud of that fact that our faculty are preparing our students well to be successful when they transfer. We're piloting student housing. You may have heard me speak about that in the past, and again, that's because of a partnership with our local hospital who had some apartment buildings they weren't using, and we've been able to lease those from the hospital to use those. We have 16 units right now, with 2 students in each unit. So far, although I have to say, I know all of you with housing know the first day we already had a student issue, so it's been a new learning experience for us in Kalispell.
That's it. You've been very busy.
A couple more quick things. Okay. We have international programs, and I think you know that. We have a study abroad program in Venice. We've had students in in Bali and Peru. We have a group going this winter to the Galapagos Islands to study natural resources and biology. Those are a few of the international programs. We've had a Fulbright Scholar in Residence from China teaching Chinese, certainly in Northwest Montana. Many of our students have never left the state, let alone the county. And as you discussed yesterday, the importance of the global education is something we believe is very important. We expect to have another Fulbright Scholar in Residence next year, an Indigenous artist from New Zealand. We have been told that's who we'll have next fall, so we're looking forward to that and hope to be able to share some of that with you. One last thing, our scholars students were involved in a project with Senator Baucus, and it was in an article just yesterday, I think, in the Chronicle of Higher Education, and we can sure get you that site, but it was a great opportunity for our students to participate in looking at what the supercommittee is looking at. How do you deal with what the supercommittee is looking at, the revenue and the deficit, and how do you balance the national budget? And Senator Baucus gave our students the opportunity to have access to a number of congressional documents, to have that discussion, and I think the staff that led that, our faculty and staff, discovered that just like in Congress, there were some very diverse opinions on how to resolve those problems, but they came up with some very interesting and innovative suggestions that were shared with Senator Baucus and I think will be shared with the super committee. The last thing I would just leave with you is you've talked a lot about the partnerships. We've been very fortunate to have partnerships with all of the units here at the university system and also with the tribal colleges. We've been piloting a new practical nursing program with Blackfeet Community College to help them get that program started, so we're doing that for them and with them. We are looking at how we can expand our opportunities and partnerships with the university system to offer more four-year and graduate programs on our campus. I know we have more than 25 now. A higher education center is something we've talked about in the past. I know Commissioner Stearns and I have visited about that. It may not need to be a physical place at this point, but if there are ways for us to look at how we can expand our partnerships to encourage the transition of community college students to the four-year colleges. There's been much more research recently about how four-year colleges can reach out to make those community college students feel more accepted, to have a better transition, and we're certainly looking forward to working with all of you on that, whether it's through dual admissions or opportunities to better partner and provide those for our students to be more successful. Thank you.
Thank you very much, President Karras, and fantastic report. And also, I just want to make sure folks understand and know that President Karras is on the executive committee of the American Association of Community Colleges, where she serves as chair of the Committee on Program Initiatives. President Hickswaw, you're next.
Thank you, John, and thank you for your excellent presentation earlier today. The opportunities in Eastern Montana are very exciting, and it's an exciting time for us to be out there. I want to talk to you a little bit about some of the quality initiatives that we have been focusing on. The literature for at-risk and developmental student success says that there are 5 main things that a college should focus on: mandatory placement, required prerequisites, no late registration, required orientation, and intrusive advising. You heard a lot earlier yesterday about intrusive advising and how some of those kind of things are working, and we are doing those things on our campus. It's been amazing to see the transformation on our campus with mandatory placement and required prerequisites. Got a little pushback at first, but once we started seeing the student success happen as a result, we've had some amazing, amazing things happen. We are requiring students to take the placement test, of course, and amazingly requiring them to take the courses that they placed into. And amazingly, they do well in those courses, and then they do well in subsequent courses. It's a great model. Also, no late registration. One of the things that we see with at-risk and developmental students is that they will push the bar and come to school the last day that they are required to do so. And so when we were allowing them to register after the first week or after the second week of classes, they're already behind. And so by not allowing late registration after school has started, we've really, really heightened student success.
Do you mind being interrupted for a question?
Absolutely not.
Deputy Commissioner Moore will probably see this coming because we have visited the topic before in terms of no late registration, in terms of the university system as a whole. And a group looked into it and kind of discouraged the board from encouraging that. But so how did you do it? Or, I mean, did you really do it?
We did.
I mean,
and
you really
certain-
did it?
We really did.
We did, okay.
And certainly
Did
there
the world,
are,
I mean, civilization change?
there are exceptions to every rule. Every student that comes in has their own particular story of what might happen. But what we did was just change the deadline for late registration. So late registration is the week before school starts. And there's still the drop add period, certainly. And so those kind of things are adjusted, the schedule. But I would agree with some of the research that Dr. Moore found and discouraged to do that at the university level. This is specifically for literature on at-risk and developmental student success. And so as we look at university students, their success ratios are different and dependent on different kinds of things. And so when we look at risk students, they are already struggling with their lives sometimes and getting their lives in order. And oftentimes we counsel them that now is not the best time for them in their life to go to school. And that affects enrollment. And that's one of the things that as we've implemented some of these requirements, it hasn't affected our enrollment negatively. I told you when I was before you to talk about budgets in September that our enrollment was looking like it would be flat or slightly up, and it's not. It's down 17 FTE. And some of that is certainly due to our demographics in eastern Montana and low unemployment, and because our high school enrollment is decreasing. But some of it is frankly due to some of these things. If I don't let them register, that could be an FTE that I miss. But amazingly, we're getting them in the spring semester. So our spring semester FTE is trending up over the last 4 years, while our fall semester has been trending down. And it's due to these measures. Because of the required prerequisites, we're also advising some students to start in developmental, instead of starting in developmental ed classes, to go right to our adult ed. And that affects our enrollment also. But it improves student success, and our data are showing it. Our retention rate was 75%, and this year the iPads is showing our graduation and transfer rate at 61%. Last year our graduation rate was one of the highest in the nation at 69%. And as a result, we were nominated for the prestigious Aspen Award. We were one of 120 community colleges to be nominated for that award. Unfortunately, we weren't selected among the finalists, and the finalists should be announced here in the next couple of weeks. But this graduation rate placed us number 4 in the nation among community colleges. So when we look at funding models, FTE versus completions, we're seeing some great completion rates, even though our FTE is going down slightly. We've also modified our recruitment area to encompass a 500-mile radius of Miles City, which puts us into Saskatchewan, North Dakota, South Dakota, and Wyoming, rather than focusing on Montana. And so that is impacting us as well. We've seen almost double the enrollment in that Grow Eastern Montana program since it began. And then I want to close by talking a little bit about what we've been doing in outreach. We talked a lot about workforce development earlier today. Our workforce development program with our outreach department has increased 25% over the last 3 years. And in fact, Lynette was the first person we hired in that program to work solely on workforce development. She also helped us with our Wired grant. Part of my vision on becoming president was to have someone to work on continuing ed, someone to work on online education, and someone to work solely on workforce development. And we have Cassie Taylor running our workforce development office, and she's doing a fantastic job. Last year, we had 744 students served in that program. It's just-in-time training, it's customized training, it's workforce training, it's all of those kind of things. And I mentioned it a little bit yesterday when Regent Teal asked me the question about our educators conference. So we do that. We do CNA, we do nursing continuing education, business seminars for business leaders, computer training, accounting, small business development, contractors' environmental training, first aid and CPR. We have an OSHA training online, so contractors can take that 24/7 whenever they would like. We have a CDL program. We've developed flagger training for the road construction industry. So we are well prepared to meet some of the needs that John talked about a little bit earlier. In addition, some of our trades programs fit right in as well. Our building trades program, for example, President Cargill and I were at a meeting in Sydney a while back, and the producers were there talking to Max Baucus about what some of their needs were. Housing. We can build houses. We're building a modular house behind our shop right now, and that's being purchased by somebody in the community, but we could certainly do that and ship it to Sydney very easily. We have a heavy equipment operation program, and our students are graduating from that program and making more money than most of our employees at the college, including myself. We have an auto mechanics program, IT. We have ag-related programs that certainly meet the agriculture-related needs of our community, and healthcare. Healthcare is going to become just more and more of a need, and we've seen that in the research. But as we're looking at workforce needs in eastern Montana, people aren't choosing to go into those kind of fields because they can get the big money driving truck. So we need to make sure that we focus on meeting the healthcare needs of the area. Emergency room visits have gone up exponentially, apparently.
And I don't mean to cut you off, but we're tight on time, but that's an outstanding report, so excellent work. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thank you. President Cargill, we have a short amount of time. If you could give us a very quick update.
Well, I'll try to. I'm going to try to tag on to your earlier discussion about what's going on in eastern Montana. I'm not at ground zero, but I can see it from my house. On Monday, the job service listings in Williston, there were 4,080 jobs. Okay? There's no place to live in Williston. Okay? The apartments that used to go for $400 for a two-bedroom apartment are now going for $2,000, and old folks are having to move out and load up their U-Hauls and move away. The highway from Sydney to Glendive now carries more traffic than the interstate. Okay? It went from 1,700 vehicles a day to well over 6,000 vehicles a day. Okay? Now Sydney is already, the boom has already hit them, and they're trying to find people to develop and build houses and residences, but they're way behind the curve. Okay? You wouldn't think it, but it's already hit Glendive, Montana. In Glendive, Montana, we have a bed tax or $1 a night per motel room. Okay? This year we've made $60,000 on that. So every motel in town has been full all the time, and these are full of workers who are getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning and driving to Williston and working all day and then coming back and staying in our motel rooms. So housing shortage is a monumental problem. It's a problem for the college in that we can't, if a student comes to Glendive and they don't live there, and right now there's not very many high school students graduating in Glendive, we depend upon people coming and living in our residence halls. We can accommodate 150 there. And then they come and they look for apartments in Glendive, Montana. In Glendive, the apartment that used to rent for $400 now rents from $800 to $1,000 a month. Okay, students can't afford that, they don't come. Then the high school students coming out, the oil fields aren't looking for trained people, they're looking for untrained people. And they'll pay them $25 an hour to start, and then they roughneck for a year, and then they move up the ladder each, I'm telling you about in their 3 years, they become managers, and they're making really big money. So that's a tough thing, it's a tough thing. The public schools, the lower grades are full of students. Our elementary schools are bursting at the seams. It's because these are workers that are coming, and the ones we want, which are the ones that will come and stay there. They'll be permanent residents, not the people that come in for 7 weeks and go home and come back for 7 weeks and go home that way. We want those permanent residents. Well, they're in their 30s and they have little kids. They're not going to have high school kids yet. So we see that hitting us in about 3 or maybe 4 or 5 years, or if we get better housing, that will help them right away. It makes it very difficult to hire employees been trying to hire an HR person for 6 months. Okay? We've offered it to 2 different people. Each of them has said, I can't rent an apartment or get a house on what you pay. Okay? So it's been very, very difficult. We have a couple faculty positions open we haven't been able to fill, can't even get any applicants. And then we're losing people to the oil fields that they have skills. Yeah. So it makes it really difficult.
Not to interrupt you, Jim, but you are, President Cargill, excuse me,
Right.
that you really are describing the need, and I saw you nodding, for not just a task force, but really a strike force.
Right.
In terms of the investment in human capital and the creativity. Couple more minutes?
Our plans are, we're working with a couple of companies to train their employees. One is with Mud Masters out of, I can't remember, both are companies from Louisiana. They do biodegradable drilling mud, which is an interesting stuff. It's made out of sugar beets and corn oil, and it's not a problem for the environment in any way or shape. You can put it on your pancakes. The other one is a company called PEC Premier out of Baton Rouge. They provide industry training, safety training. They basically, employees have to come on and they provide housing, room and board, and training. They're up to 9-day sessions, and we have residence halls that are empty all summer, and we have the opportunity to host those folks, and they will train our people. They have train the trainer programs. They have up to 20 industry certifications. Every worker in the oil field has to have a card with their certifications on it in order to work. Okay, that's what these people do. One of the folks I was talking to, he said he had to go to Grand Junction, Colorado, get his card, and it cost him $1,000 a week, and plus his room and board. So there's a lot of money out there. These industry companies want to do this, and so we're looking into doing that. We're looking into revamping our engineering tech program to give it a petroleum emphasis. It's been a kind of a generalized program, and we really need to get more involved in the petroleum and gas industry because that's where things are happening. It's moving our way. So as far as our goals are concerned, well, let me go one more thing. We've been talking to developers. I was in a meeting on Wednesday with the county commissioners, the city people, and college folks, and all the economic development folks about some developers want to come in and develop. They're already developing 2 new hotels in town, a Holiday Inn Express, and I don't remember what the other one is. And then they want to develop 50 single-family homes and 200 multi-family residences in North Glendive between the interstate and the fairgrounds. So Sheila knows where that is. So there's some land there that would really work for that. So we're working with those folks because the college owns some of that property. Not a lot of it, but some of it. And we have some other pieces of property that they can relocate some industry kinds of things onto, so it doesn't become an industrial park, it becomes a residential area. And so we've been working very hard to make that work. Our goals are try to maintain our enrollment when students are, the lure of that $25 an hour, and I'd rather buy my pickup truck and my boat and my four-wheeler than go to college. I can do that later. And then, of course, they're making the payments, and they can never be able to do it later. To grow our endowment, we've increased our endowment by 100% in the last 5 years. Still much too small.
I think that's...
Definitely.
Okay.
We haven't actually, they know there's a plan coming. We're sharing it with them at our next meeting, which is the Monday after Thanksgiving.
Okay.
We've been more interested in trying to get the work done and make sure the plan was in place. We are moving forward getting the work done.
Okay.
We do, Commissioner Robinson asked for the plan on Tuesday, and you got it out to us on Wednesday, or Wednesday and Thursday was one day later. So the plan is in my financial person's head. It just wasn't on paper.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't realize that short time period, there was that short time period involved. So that's good, and we'll just wait, you know, when we meet with the trustees, because obviously it's important that everybody, you and them, be on board on the same
Oh, definitely.
plan.
Because
And just-
that piece kind of controls everything else, so we have to have that done.
And Chairman Barrett, just to clarify, the report that Deputy Commissioner Robinson's visiting task force called for was for a plan. And so, and I mentioned that when I visited with your Board of Trustees on the 24th of October.
Right.
And then just as a point of reference, and I don't know why, but it certainly struck me, I had the opportunity to work my way mostly through school work in the oil field on a rig, and I got $3 an hour. So
It certainly has changed.
Yeah, if I go back, it's almost 100% improvement. I think I have to give that some thought. I don't have a card, fortunately. Excuse me. Any more, you know, having heard each other, any more thoughts, comments among each other, or things you think we ought to know about? I mean, you guys are sort of where the action is, you know?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, if I could just add one thing that I didn't mention earlier, is I just wanted, on behalf of our trustees, thank you for the opportunity. I know they've been invited to be here today, but with your time being short and the travel distance, I know they look forward to another time in the future. They've enjoyed the opportunities they've had to meet with you and look forward to doing that again. So we'll find another time that works best for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, President Karras. Regent Christian.
I just be curious to hear President Hickswa's comment on the banner. I mean, is it truly the root of all evil, or I'm struggling with that, to be honest, and you got put in the same sentence. I guess I'd like to hear it from you if that's the truth.
Chairman Christian, members of the board, as we looked at the panel and the goals, plans, and challenges, I could have easily said our goal is to get banner implemented, and we're planning our goals and sessions around banner implementation, and our future challenges do include banner. As Dr. Cargill said, because we're a small campus and we only have one-person departments, it has been a challenge to implement it. Our student piece is fairly well implemented, and we're starting to see some light at the end of that tunnel. And I think having the enrollment numbers on Deputy Commissioner Trevor's data yesterday was a real good demonstration of why Banner works and the benefits of Banner. Frankly, the finance piece is something that we are struggling with the full implementation, but I need to thank Chancellor Groseth and President Engstrom for the resources that they are giving us to provide assistance to make that happen. So I think that there is some light at the end of the tunnel. It has been a long process, but as Deputy Commissioner Trevor knows well, we scrunched that process to make a 2 or 3 year normal implementation happen in a year. And I think it was very, very ambitious to think that we could have it fully implemented in a year, and to be where we are after just a year is really, truly amazing.
Any, Commissioner Stearns?
Thank you both. I mean, the old saying that you can't hire 9 women to have a baby in 1 month. I mean, you know, maybe some of the scrunching of some of this. It's not such an old saying. Okay. All right. Well, it's not original with me. Maybe Banner was a little accelerated, but as you just acknowledged, you know, the resources that came from the legislature, from Associate Commissioner Trevor, from I mean, a couple $1 million, frankly, members of the board. And still, and then recently, the investment of time and effort by the team led by Mick Robinson and Rolf Groseth's folks. So we have been willing to have 9 women working on this, so to speak, to continue the metaphor that seemed to capture the group more than I thought it might. But we know it's been a challenge, but it's been an important one, and I don't think anyone can fault us all you or us for not working together. In the Dawson case, though, and I know members of the board, your time is getting short, and some of you have noon commitments, so I kind of have a little question here for you, President Cargill. We, in meeting with your board, Mick, John, there were 4 things that we really felt that we needed to especially work with Dawson on. One was, fiscal controls and fiscal responsiveness. Justin, you said, has delivered a plan, so that's good, and we'll look at it, and Mick tells me he's looking at it. 2 was on Banner, just discussed. 3 was on your HR challenges, increasing assistance from the OCHE HR and legal teams. I think, as you know, we've been more than willing to work with you on that. I know it's still been a huge challenge for you with a lot of labor relations issues, but we're there. But all of those 3, then we know, help, if you will, distract Dawson to a degree from really responding as much as I think Superintendent Farr and others might have wanted in terms of dual enrollment or responses to the whole Bach-Sydney area, which is why, and I appreciate it again to see you nod, which is why I am doing what I think I should have done in the first place. That's elevating it to a whole sort of statewide, regional strike force co-chaired by John and Waded. And I just think all of that, we need for Dawson to be strong and Miles to be strong, and not for you two to worry about some border that crosses between Terry, but working with, Daniel or Don or Joe or their successors, Rolf, Waded. I mean, I really think that's what all of what may have seemed like pressure, although when you and I spoke in Glendive, you invited me to come back, and I'm not sure you thought I'd come back with 5 people like that, but been putting pressure on, and we need for results from that area, and I know you're eager to deliver them, and we need for your boards to be engaged with us.
We appreciate the help that we've gotten from your office and from the people in your office and from the other institutions. And we are moving forward as fast as we can with Banner. That's part of it. The fiscal control thing, basically what we need is more people. And that's why I've been trying to hire an HR person so that we'd have somebody, we could multitask some of those things that need to be done from an accounting perspective. So if we can ever get somebody hired, so we can get that done, and we keep lowering the standard, which I hate to do, of what that person knows in order for us to get that job filled. So I think we're moving forward on it. I think we are moving forward. The labor relations issue is basically we finally resolved those. We just got through spending 19 months negotiating a brand new first-time staff contract. Okay, and it was rather contentious, and it's taken a lot of our time and a lot of our efforts, and when we do those, we have to do it. We don't have somebody hired to do those kinds of things. So we've been focused on that, trying to get that straightened out. We finally got that straightened out last month. Of course, that takes a lot of aftermath afterwards, because you got to calculate, the back pay for people at one rate and then back pay at people at another rate and get that. So we've already got all that taken care of now. So I think we were trying to focus more upon what we should be focusing upon, which is growing the Eastern Montana workforce and helping people to adjust to what's happening in our region.
Thank you, President Cargill. Any additional comments or questions among either public comment or among the people at the table, or administration staff? Any questions or comments from among the regions? Well, thank you all again. Mr. Chairman, that would conclude the two-year workforce committee. I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Regent Barrett. Summer, you're going to have to help me because my battery's officially dead, but I think we just have academic research and student affairs left. Okay. So we can move through those. I guess we'll start with the consent agenda to entertain a motion.
So moved. The committee's moved it forward, Chairman Christian.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the consent agenda items A and B. Is there any public comment on those items? Any additional comment from administration, faculty, students, or staff? Any further board comment? Okay, then we have before us a motion to approve consent agenda items A and B. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Regent Buchanan, your action agenda.
Item A has been agreed upon by the committee to move forward, so the motion's made to accept item A, the Montana Institute of Ecosystems. I know there's one comment from Deputy Commissioner Moore on this one.
I'll make it 2 comments. We did add tribal in response to Regent Robinson's request. The other thing I just wanted to cover an omission I made yesterday when we were excited in talking about this topic. The new structure does include a director, statewide director for EBSCOR, and I failed to acknowledge the really hard work of Dr. Mark Young, who is a professor of plant sciences and plant pathology here at MSU, but who does report to me for managing our new EBSCOR grant and was the principal writer responsible for that grant coming to us. So just to be sure he got full credit.
Okay, so we have a motion before us to approve item A, the Montana Institute on Ecosystems. Regent Robinson, does that address your concerns, the changes?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I took a look at it, and it does. And I thank you for making that friendly amendment.
Perfect. All right, then I'll call for public comment on this item. Any public comment? Further comment from administration, faculty, students, or staff? Further board discussion? Seeing none, we have an item before us to approve the Montana Institute on Ecosystems, a nice collaborative piece, I would say, the first of hopefully many. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Regent Buchanan.
Item B, the motion to be made to accept the admission change at MSU Bozeman has been put forth by the committee. Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Regent Buchanan. Any public comment on this item? Is there any further comment from administration, faculty, students, or staff? Further board comment? Seeing none, we have before us item to change the mission statement at MSU Bozeman. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Regent Buchanan.
Finally, action item C, resolution on behalf of this board to bring some finality to the transferability project has been moved forward by the committee. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Regent Buchanan. Is there any public comment on this item? Further public comment? Any further comment from administration, faculty, students, or staff? Any further board comments? All right, certainly a signature piece of the board of the last few years, and it's a job well done, and I think this is a good resolution to continue that work into the future. We thank everyone that's spent time on this. The OCHI staff was greatly involved, and certainly the legwork that was done by the faculty and the campuses is incredible effort and challenge, so we thank all. There's a motion before us to approve the resolution on transferability. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. That,
Mr. Chair.
President Cruzado.
Sure. I have a question. Yesterday in the agenda, under the informational items, we had a request for guidance from the Regents in regards to the discussion of long-term financing planning for accelerated BSN program, and we didn't have time yesterday. We were going to try to have that today. Since we are also running late, I just need to know what we're going to do, because we have a cohort of 16 students waiting. Shall we just proceed as the Regents had approved previously and then seek guidance at a later meeting? Your advice will be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, President Cruzado. Deputy Commissioner Moore.
Thank you, Chairman Christian. President Cruzado, I spoke with Provost Potvin, and she has provided some information that we're going to mail to the Regents and do some action really quickly. just to get their guidance. So, thank you.
Thank you.
We understand your sense of urgency and appreciate your willingness to let us give the time that this deserves. Thanks, President Cruzado.
Okay, that works for you, President Cruzado? That's, okay. All right, thank you. So can you move back to the main one? Oh, I guess we're on the main one, sorry. Well, the only thing we need to do, I guess, at this point in time is call for public comment on items not on today's agenda. We've always allowed comments either on or not on, so if there's any public comment.
I think that's Michael Dill. Is Michael coming forward?
I don't.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is Mike Dills. I was the ASMSU lobbyist in this last legislative cycle. I'm here today to speak on behalf of myself and Blake Robertson, the MSU Billings lobbyist who is currently at Gonzaga Law and can't be with us today. We didn't do so well in the last legislature, and we've all been kind of licking the wounds from that. But as a system, we asked for nearly $400 million in state funding and presented no clear-cut plan for how that money was to be spent and allocated. When the legislators asked us tough questions, such as what are the effects going to be on tuition and different programs with different levels of funding, our collective answer was a resounding, well, the Board of Regents don't meet until May to discuss that. And you guys can trust us, though, it's only $400 million. But to ask legislators to allocate that kind of money to the university system on blind faith is not business savvy. And I understand there's a lot of stress and a lot of politics that go into your jobs and making sure that you serve the university system as best you can, and you can't always be a political force. But I feel that that money is well spent. But when we approach the legislature, they don't, unless we have an exact plan and can tell them where that money is going, what the cuts are going to be, and leave it up to them to allocate those funds. And in May, then you guys can do your part in using what you've been given and making it all work. I had a favorite saying up in Helena, and that was that I've never seen a horse win a race that wasn't in it. Now, we may never have actually stood a chance of regaining any of those lost funds. But to see that after all the time commitment and energy from the commissioner's staff, from the student organizations and the campuses, that for 4 months we were shooting blanks in Helena is pretty disheartening. And on behalf of myself and Blake, we would sincerely hope that you continue and take a proactive role in securing funds at the next legislature. Thanks for your time and attention.
Appreciate your comments. I don't know if I necessarily agree with them, but I appreciate them. They're certainly duly noted.
I'd also like to note that we certainly appreciate all the work that you guys do in actually administering the university system.
Other public comment?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, all the wonderful folks of the community that are here. My name is Jeffrey Edmonds. I'm the Vice President of the Associated Students of the University of Montana in Missoula, and this is...
Yeah, my name is Asa Holman. I'm a Senator for Associated Students of the University of Montana.
And we wanted to offer up something we thought would be a real potential for a very fitting closure to this meeting. And we'd like to share that with you at this time.
just something to kind of percolate on. Up with Montana boys, down with the Cats.
Good old Grizzlies out for a victory.
We'll shoot our backs round the Cats line.
Good old Grizzlies will triumph tomorrow.
And the whine of the cat will float through the air.
From the tummy of the grizzly bear.
Thank you. Go Grizz.
Thank you very much. Go Grizz.
Thank you. I assume there could be more public comment now? Are we willing to leave it at that? Any further public comment? All right, last chance. Further public comment. Other than that, we're going to recess for a bit of a football extravaganza tomorrow. Well, we're not going to recess. We're going to adjourn. All right, meeting's adjourned.
Thanks, everybody.